Hi, I'm Don. At this point, I think Army Painter Speedpaint is king, and I'll tell you why. No. This is not a review of the Army Painter Speedpaint 2.0. This is a painting channel, and we have tons of review channels already. Today, we continue to push what Army Painter Speedpaint can do by painting a big-scale model. This is not a miniature, this is practically a model, a figure already, but the painting process was a little bit the same, but it was different. As usual, watch until the end of the video for our tip time. Hi, I'm Don. Welcome to my studio. This channel is supported by all these awesome brands. And of course, this channel won't be possible without the support of my patrons. As usual these days, we start the painting by painting the base colors with speed paints. I made a couple of boo-boos with the painting of this figure because it's been a while since I painted a bigger model, like a big-scale figure. Like I said in the intro, I think at this point, the Army Painter Speedpaint is king. This is actually my 10th video in just 3 weeks. And because I'm painting with Army Painter Speedpaints, you simply paint faster. Well, no wonder they're called speed paints. If I'm not using speed paints, I can only produce a couple of videos a week or even just once a week, but never once a month. That's too slow. But basically, painting with speed paints made me paint faster. It's like I have sort of a process now, and I'm totally enjoying starting my painting with Army Painter speed paints. Okay, I'll stop. I'll stop saying good things about Army Painter speed paints because I'm not paid to say those. I'm not paid to say that. So let's go back to the video. Now we're painting with maize yellow, and this color, same with a few colors but I don't have the exact names and count, are kind of opaque in comparison to most of the speed paint collection. Now we proceed to painting the metallics. You see, painting figure or big scale models are totally different with painting miniatures. I think you cannot do proper non-metallic metal with a figure like this because it will look really good in photos or in video, but it will look kind of weird in person because you're practically painting 2D on 3D and it's really big. So you could see that it kind of looks weird. To be honest, I tried painting a bust, a really big bust, by doing non-metallic metal. It looks nice in the photos. It looks nice in the videos. It's typical non-metallic metal, but in person, I don't think it looks good. This is just my opinion, but basically it takes more time if you paint non-metallic metal on such a huge model, and also, other than being very time-consuming, I just don't feel like it fits the scale. So painting bigger models like this one is kind of different. It's like you don't really paint too much highlights, but you want to achieve good contrast. But if you paint too much highlights, it's kind of like it will look like dirt or speckles of paint or a weird texture because you let the actual lighting of the surrounding of the model to give you that sense of lighting. So you don't really give it too much atmospheric effects, too much texture. You basically make sure that your painting complements the sculpt and that you don't go out of your way, really introduce other stuff like weird painting techniques, too much texturing. So you don't really need it to pop because it's pretty big already. So it's kind of different painting a bigger model like this one and painting miniatures. But the selection of paints and colors in terms of painting a bigger model, a big scale model, is very crucial, is very important, because you need to like replicate the material or the texture by using paints. Like your metallic should really look like metal in a way, and your cloth should really look like cloth without painting too much highlights and texturing. So it's very crucial in terms of selecting your paints and selecting your colors. Your layering is also crucial. Like, you can't really do the usual layering that we do with miniatures. You see, miniatures are so small. Even if you do like really quick layering, you'll produce nice transitions because they're small. With this one, most people will just airbrush this because they're really big, and of course airbrush is very efficient and it produces nice transitions really quick. But you all know me, like if you're an old time like patron or subscriber, you know that I try not to use my airbrush. I kind of get bored with the airbrush. Now here is the first like boo-boo, or like basically the first weakness of Speedpaint, because the Speedpaint here kind of struggled with the big like smooth body. It doesn't have like, the Speedpaint was like, oh no, there are no recesses. Where am I going to settle? So it produces like blotches and uneven finish, because again, the body of the lion is too smooth. There's no texture, so the Speedpaint kind of got confused and kind of struggled on like where to settle in terms of crevices. So I think Speedpaint was really formulated to settle on crevices much like a wash, but at the same time produce nice highlights and nice base color. But it renders super well if the model is very textured. With this one, of course, only the hair or the mane of the lion is textured, but the body is not. So now we're dry brushing so that we kind of smoothen, like kind of cover the blotches on the body of the lion so that we don't see the uneven finish. Now we continue to cover slightly like the blotches and the uneven finish on the body of the lion. So you see pastel yellow is similar with maize yellow. It is not semi-transparent. It has a very subtle opacity. It's not like zealot yellow, which is like very ink, which is very transparent. So it's a really nice color to lay down a subtle film, a subtle finish on the model so that you slightly cover your mistakes. Now, after the dry brushing and the pastel yellow glazing, you could see now that we have a smoother finish to the body of the lion. Actually, it looks kind of realistic for me in terms of color, and normally you could stop here and be happy with the result, especially the metallics. The metallics is witchcraft. The metallics is super good. Now we switch to Cuttlefish Colors. At this point, actually, Cuttlefish Colors is virtually tied with Army Painter Speedpaints in my opinion. Like these two brands, these two paints are like King 1 and King 2, but I can't really like assign which is King 1 or King 2. So you see, I wasn't really alarmed with the bad finish earlier with the Speedpaint on the body of the lion, because I knew I'll be painting some fur on top of that. So again, as usual, this painting process or the whole painting video is the perfect example of trusting the process. So since I've been using Army Painter Speedpaint as my base colors, it's actually faster than using airbrush as your base colors. Because when you're using the airbrush, you have to do masking, and of course you have to clean the airbrush and all that stuff. But with Speedpaints, it's just a matter of like painting it over the model and again, trust the process. Now going back to the video, basically you see that I'm just doing basic layering with Cuttlefish Colors. However, I must say that Cuttlefish Colors layers differently because these paints are pre-glaze paints. So they're a little bit more transparent. They have like a really unique way of layering the colors, and I really love it because they totally match my painting style in terms of layering. If you do not have Cuttlefish Colors and you have regular paints, tons of regular paints, make sure that you have quality regular paints. I won't mention brands. You just add a small amount of medium to your paint so that you add a little bit of transparency. So roughly around 3, maybe 2 parts paint and 1 part medium will do the job well, and you will produce a smoother transitions with the layering of this semi-glaze paint, or like I call them fat glazes. Now we need to darken the armor parts. I was actually lazy at this point, but basically I just thinned down Grim Black with 1 part Grim Black and 1 part Speedpaint Medium and used it as a wash. You could of course you could use non-oil or whatever wash that you like. We basically just needed to darken the armor part so that our highlighting later will kind of pop out a bit more. Now you let your washes dry for roughly around 20 minutes, and then now we proceed to dry brushing our highlights. I'm using Warpaint's Air, and I'm just basically dry brushing with very little pressure and using the Army Painter dry brush. And then with the gold parts, I think I use a Vallejo old gold or something. I forgot, but basically I also use that gold to dry brush on the gold parts. If you really want to spend time on the painting of the armor, you could actually let this dry, the dry brushing, and then proceed to adding more washes like a blue wash or a brown wash, and then dry brush again. So you could flip-flop this technique so that you produce a better miniature. Now it's time for our tip time. Now before I reveal, a ton of thanks to all my patrons, because without my patrons, this channel won't be possible. Now you saw in the video that Speedpaint, or at least the color that we chose, kinda struggled on the painting of the body of the lion, which has totally no textures. Now I think if you're painting a huge surface without any textures like cloak and stuff like that, you could actually just paint with normal or regular paint so that you have a flat, even finish. But then again, you saw here that since we're painting, like we painted fur and did a bit of highlighting again with fur, we kind of pulled it off. Similar to speed paints, dry brushing is super good if you're dry brushing a very textured surface. But it won't work on the body of the lion because you'll just produce those like dry brush textures without making any sense. I mean, you don't have raised areas for the dry brushing. So although when you're painting a bigger model, a big scale model like this one, you don't really need to paint too much highlights, or you don't really need to paint too much texture because you simply complement the mold or the sculpt. But with this one, I had to paint the actual fur because it doesn't have any textures. Oh, this video is too short to talk about the metallics. I need to put up another video about the really good Speedpaint Metallics. That's it, Pansit. I hope you liked the video and watch these other videos.